Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. This is one of those practical sessions that we have for you today. And we're going to start with Emmanuel, and I'm going to read his bio because it's early and I don't want to miss something out. So Emmanuel is a freelance investigative reporter based in Kenya, and he has been conducted investigations for over a decade. He mixes investigative approaches from very large data sets to field reporting in conflict zones. He's won a Peabody, European Press Prize, Sigma Award, and Frontline Club Award. Well done. His last investigation revealed that over 700 million euros of dirty money has been laundered in French real estate. He also runs the Dictator Alert project that tracks the aircrafts of authoritarian governments around the world.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so Bashar and I are going to give you a tour of tracking planes and boats. So I'll do the part on plane tracking, and then he will take over on the boats, and then at the end we'll have a question and answer session. So this is going to be quite a practical, or at least we're trying to make it quite a practical session with ideas of how to use this plane tracking and boat tracking data, and how to get ideas for investigations and so on. There's so much more we could talk about, but this is like a taster. So I hope you will enjoy that. So I'll get started with the plane one. So at any point in time, there's thousands of planes in the air. This is just a snapshot that I took last week. And of course, as journalists, we're going to wonder, who is in this plane, where is it going, why is it going there? Of course, the downside is that most of those planes are really boring. It would be like the Stockholm to Berlin plane with some holiday makers on board. So our job is going to be to find amongst all these planes the ones that are going to be interesting, or use this information in order to do an investigation. So I'm going to try and convince you of something during this session, is why you should be a plane nerd. And I'm going to give you a few examples of investigations that have been done using plane data and tracking aircraft. One of the first ones was extraordinary rendition flights of the CIA. I'm sure you're all familiar with this story. Around 2005, the CIA would take people from different places and move them to other countries and interrogate them and so on in a very secretive manner. And those people were moved on planes. And planes are also the way that this story broke. So that's quite a big one. More recently, I think 2017, 2018, BuzzFeed did this amazing story on using machine learning, looking at all the planes that are circling, surveillance planes circling above the US. And you can see here their tracks, of FBI and DHS planes. This is a more recent one from the New York Times, I think, last year, looking at Russian planes and the Russian elite, and where they're flying now with the sanctions. Planes, of course, apart from your Stockholm to Berlin plane, most of them are quite expensive bits of gear, and so people who own planes or who travel in private jets are usually quite wealthy or very wealthy, and so those are usually the planes that we're most interested in. Then this is a story I worked on with Bashar, or a few stories that we did with Lighthouse reports, revealing illegal pushbacks, or the knowledge of Frontex of illegal pushbacks and their involvement in the Central Med and the Aegean And so this star is actually used both plane and boat data. So at the end of this presentation, you'll know how we did it, or at least you'll know the data that we used to do it. So now a very nerdy bit, a bit of a technical section in this presentation, because I want you all to understand what exactly is plane tracking data, and to understand where is this data coming from. You know, it's a bit like interrogating human sources. You want to know how they know things. You want to know, well, obviously with data, the motivation is a bit different, but you want to make sure that you don't attribute something to them that they said that is not something that they're aware of. So same thing with data. You want to understand where it's coming from, how it knows that this plane was at this place at a certain time, and so on. So we're just going to go through that basis for understanding it. So the first thing to know is where ADS-B data is coming from, or plane tracking data is basically to avoid planes crashing into each other. Obviously, they're not broadcasting the location for us. They're doing that so that they don't, so that the control tower is aware of where they are, and they also communicate with each other automatically, obviously, of where they are. And there's basically three big types of sources for this data. The first one is a primary radar, which is like a big thing like this that spins. And if you've seen, movies where they have this green screen with like ships or planes beeping, that's basically from this kind of antenna. And it's anything that flies in the sky will be triggered, will trigger this antenna. But of course, that doesn't give information to the control tower of exactly what plane it is. They just see something flying. And that's, obviously, we don't have access to this information. It's only military and governments who have access. Another source of data is one that we use, which is satellite data. So planes will broadcast their location, send their location to the satellite, and then that data is publicly available. More or less, we'll get into that in a bit. And those are mostly the big commercial planes, so usually it's not very interesting, that type of data, because, again, the big commercial plane, the Stockholm-Berlin plane, is not super interesting for us. The last type is the ADS-B data, which is broadcasted again by the plane, but this time it's grabbed by antennas, ground antennas, and those antennas can be operated pretty much by anyone. Like the cheapest one are like $10, so you could go on Alibaba and buy one. And those are the locations of those antennas. So you can see, like in Europe, there's lots of them, in the US as well, and like in Africa, and like, Russia and China, much less of them. And those are like basically plane enthusiasts. There's like a lot of people who are really into planes. And they have these antennas at home on their roof, and then those antennas get information from the plane. And we'll see in a second what kind of information they're getting. This is what the antennas look like, or at least one type of antenna. This is how you install them. This one is in Johannesburg. And then that data gets fed to different websites. So what does these antennas see? Actually, it's a receiver, to be very specific. So at minimum, it will have the squawk, which is like a code that the pilot can put in the plane, and the altitude of the plane. And the reason there's different data, or some planes will broadcast more data than others, and this depends how big the plane is, how modern it is, and also regulation. So in some areas in the US, for example, if you're coming to like closer to towns, you need like basically to give more data. And it depends on the equipment there is in the plane, depends on, equipment in the plane, regulations, and so on. So that's the minimum, just a squawk, this kind of code that they put in the plane, and the altitude. And also, sorry, this is also minimum, the ICAO or hex code, which is like an identifier for the plane. Each plane has a different one in theory. Then you can also get the GPS location, call sign, which is, you know, like a code for that specific flight. And lots of other info like barometric pressure and stuff that for us is not very interesting. So you see, with this information, you can know which plane is going where, basically. Now, where do you get that data? Obviously, you can't install antennas all over the world to get your own data from everywhere. You could do it like in areas that you're interested in, but usually you will go to one of these providers of data. So these are the main ones I've put here. And there's differences between them and the type of data that they provide. One key difference is whether you'll buy raw data, so just, you know, basically a GPS location and names of planes and so on, or if it's visualized online, which I'm sure you've, like that first map, basically. All of these ones are original, like they have their own antennas all over the world, and so they have their own original data. And they'll vary, like some of them will have more antennas than others, which means the coverage will be different. Some of them, you know, in Africa, like Open Sky, for example, has almost no antennas in Africa, so you can't get data there. But this one, for example, Flight Radar and FlightAware, they have more antennas, and so you'll get better coverage in Africa or different geographical areas, basically. Another key difference between them is whether they filter aircraft or not. So filtering is basically, if you have a private jet, I don't know if anyone here has one. No? Oh, yeah. So if you have a private jet, you can ask, or a plane, you can ask, or any aircraft, you can ask not to show up on any of these websites because you don't want someone tracking you, like Elon Musk. Maybe you're all familiar with this. A young guy who was tracking Elon Musk's plane, and then Elon Musk got really annoyed and ended up buying Twitter. And so it can have very big consequences. So so some of these websites, like most of them actually, like Flight Radar, FlightAware, RadarBox, they'll remove planes. If someone asks them, any plane owner asks to be removed, they won't show the plane. So obviously for us, those are the more interesting planes usually. And so this one, ADSB Exchange and OpenSky, are the two that at least say they don't filter any information. So in theory, you can see any plane on those websites. So that's another difference, you know, geographical coverage, but also which planes you can see there. And yeah, another big difference is it's whether it's free or paid and exactly what you can get for your money. Most of them you can see, you know, track aircraft over a past week. And then if you want to have like more historical data or especially raw data, you know, the actual original data, then you have to pay, and the prices can be quite, you know, quite expensive. Like a week of data could be like several thousands. For a region, it could be several $1,000. Sometimes they give discounts to journalists, sometimes not. So it's worth a shot anyway if you need specific data on a plane, to email them and ask if they don't mind giving it to you for free. Yeah. Basically, I would suggest you just go on these websites and figure out what you can get and how much it costs and so on. Okay, so now we've done the data aspect, you know where it's coming from, you know what you can get and where to get it. Your next step, at least you can get a lot more information on a plane. And some of the key information that you can get is a tail number, which is like what's on the back of a plane, like this. Sometimes it's on the tail, but sometimes just here or at different locations. And that's like a registration, like a number plate, if you want. If you compare to a car, this is like a number plate, and the hex code or the ICAO code, that unique identifier for the plane, that the antenna gets is a different number. So it's a bit like an engine number. So both are unique to the plane, but the ICAO is only visible by the antenna. You can't see it outside the plane, and the registration is only visible outside the plane, and the antenna doesn't collect this information. And that's quite important, because when you see, plane traveling on one of these websites, then you know that that website, the registration is added by that website. And yeah. Other things you can get is the owner of the plane. There's like registries, a bit like for houses, where you can find the owners of the plane and also the tail number. Changes made to the aircraft, like if there's cameras or sensors or anything changed to it. Again, depending on different countries will give you more or less information on the planes that are registered there. Photos of the plane, obviously, accidents mentioned in court cases, social media, and just like normal, search of information online. I'll give you two very quick examples of where knowing about changes made to the plane is important. Here's one story, actually the same story I mentioned earlier, I worked on with Bashar, where we found that, this plane has like all kinds of electronic equipment on it and can see, watch things really well. And this was information that was on the company's website, but there's another way to get, there's other ways to get this information. This a different story. We got information about the plane through the Federal Aviation Authority. Basically, you can order this information, and then you will have like details on, this one has a radar, like a camera, and so on. Just very quick examples, just to give you an idea of the additional information you can get. Okay, let me. So this is just a summary of the different types of information you can get on a plane. There's a lot more, and sources of information. You have websites that have discussions of control towers, like radio discussion, the ownership registries I mentioned, plane spotters, you might have heard of them. It's people who stand outside the airports and just take photos of planes. Social networks, the accident reports I mentioned, dictator alert, which you should all write down, which is a project I run where you can track aircrafts owned by dictatorships. And of course, not to forget human sources. It's super valuable to have sources at the airport. All right. So you have the theory. So I'm going to take you now through one example of a story I did that uses these different types of information. So how to cook a plane story. First, the story idea. That's actually the hardest part. And I don't have too much advice for you because I'm still figuring out how to come up with aircraft stories. But one of the key pieces of advice is start with what you know. Befriend people at the airport and just like look at what planes are doing. So this is the example that I'm going to take is this case of this political opponent, Rwandan political opponent, Rusesabagina, who was also starring in this Hotel Rwanda movie where he's shown as saving like a lot of people during the genocide. And basically, one day he shows up in jail in Rwanda, and everyone's wondering how did he go there? Because obviously he's not going to go to Rwanda because he knows he's going to get arrested. So people are wondering how he ended up there. And then there's this CNN story that says that he arrived there on a private jet. Obviously, as a plane nerd, that's very interesting. So the next step. And so obviously the idea, what you want to find out is, which plane, why did he get on the plane, where did he come from, and so on. Well, here it says, it gives you like a date and a Dubai airport. So the next step is to get the data for Dubai airport and look at all the planes that left on that day, and just basically like filter them in different ways. So here I used raw data from that airport. Now here's something I cooked earlier, which is the actual plane. You know, I had to look through loads of planes, but here we can see the flight going from Dubai to near Kigali, and then landing there. So this is definitely the plane. It matches the date. You know, it's the only plane on that day that did this trip. And yeah, the only issue is, of course, this, like you can see, this is hatched, so you don't know exactly where it went. And then it stops, like, it doesn't stop exactly in Kigali. So there's still a question mark. So what you can do is go to a website with better coverage. But the problem is this plane owner made sure that that plane doesn't show up on this website on FlightAware. So you can't actually get more information. Just an aside, like so many planes are blocked on this website, so you can't find them on a lot of websites. So if you can't find a plane on a website, doesn't mean it hasn't flown, it just means maybe it's blocked, maybe it's not blocked. Some websites don't tell you when it's blocked. And military planes also, I should mention, like most of them don't show up. Yeah. So if you want to track military planes, you're out of luck. Okay, back to our story. The next step I had was to find who owns that aircraft. And there you can go to aircraft ownership databases. Some of them are official, just like houses, and some of them are unofficial, like this one called Airframe, which is the best one, but also a bit tricky to use because they stop you at 2 queries a day at the moment. And here you find that it's a company called GAINJET, which is private jet company. So basically like a charter company. If you're a bit poor and you can't own your own private jet, you can rent it. So the next step was to find all of the planes that this company owns, and then to see if they've also flown to Rwanda, just to get an idea where is this company, how did they end up flying this guy from Dubai to jail in Rwanda. And it turned out that it's President Kagame's favorite private jet company. So clearly it was a commissioned flight, most likely it turned out it was a commissioned flight. And you can see here on social media, this is President Kagame somewhere here, and this is actually the same plane, I think, that took this political opponent from Dubai. So here we have a story where a political opponent went on a private jet in Dubai, on Kagame's favorite, private jet charter company, and ended up in jail in Kigali. So quite clearly, he didn't just show up in Kigali by his own accord. You know, he was put on that plane, and then the story that was revealed later through human sources is that he thought he was going to a meeting in Burundi, boarded the plane, and then basically landed in Kigali. So it was a surprise to him. And another little thing that you can do after is like just get photos of this is the plane, or one of the planes, and so you can easily get photos, especially for these private jets that are chartered. You can get like photos of the inside, which can be really fun for the story. You know, you can see at least he wasn't suffering before getting to jail. So that's just one example, but there's so many other ways to do stories with planes, and I hope I gave you a little bit of ideas, or at least curiosity to go and dig a bit deeper into that and do your own stories. If you want to have more information, there's an excellent guide that was written by Toby from GIJN. There's also a Bellingcat guide, and you can also get in touch with me on Twitter and or here and ask questions. I think I'll leave the mic to Bashar. And later on, if you have any questions, we'll have all the questions at the end. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. This was great. And now we have Bashar, who will explain how to track ships and boats. Bashar is an investigative journalist with a specialization in digital investigations. He has participated in different themes that have produced groundbreaking reports on various issues, such as violation of human rights of asylum seekers at EU's borders, EU's secretive phosphates, trade with Syria, and tracking EU arms in conflict zones. Bashar, please.
So hey everyone, thank you for coming for this session. I hope you all enjoyed Emmanuel's presentation as much as I did. And I hope also my presentation will be useful for you. In this presentation, I will be speaking about investigating ships. I will take you through some examples of stories on that could be done by investigating ships, but also we'll take you through the tracking part, how to use AIS data to track ships, and then after we will talk about things you can do when boats go offline. So yeah, sorry, I don't have my... Basically, one of the things you could do is, as a journalist, like by tracking ships, is to uncover illegal or unethical activities, like drug trafficking or smuggling of weapons. A lot of the trade in the world goes through the sea. Something like 80% of the cargo is transported through sea. So there is a potential to do a lot of stories. Another thing we can do as journalists is to do environmental stories on ships. Obviously, ships have really a lot of emissions. They release a lot of emissions, but they also, some of them release oil and they dump illegal materials at sea. Yeah, the environmental aspect is one of the things you can do by investigating ships. Also, another thing is human rights abuses. So ships can be involved in such abuses. I mean, either by attacking migrant boats at sea, such as these stories you hear about different kind of coast guards, like even in Europe, attacking migrant vessels, or even like migrant workers who are staying at ships for a really long time and they are getting abused by the ship owner, or they're getting underpaid. So yeah, this is also one important topic you can do. Another important topic is to monitor sanction compliance. So as journalists, we can track ships to see if they are violating any of the international or the national sanctions imposed on individuals and companies. Throughout the presentation, I will talk to you a bit about this investigation we did last year, and use some examples from this investigation to make some points. This was an investigation about the trade of Syrian phosphates. We had done with all the media partners you can see on the screen. And we have uncovered that basically 4 or 5 European countries were importing phosphates from Syria, violating different sanctions, but also at the same time enriching the dictatorship in Syria. The AIS data is like the equivalent of the ADSB data, which Emmanuel explained before. It's basically automatic tracking system. AIS stands for Automated Identification System. It basically uses transceivers on ships to broadcast their locations. So these transceivers are like what their basically name suggests. They transpond the location of the ship, but they also receive locations from other ships around. In general, AIS systems are like really crucial for maritime safety. In the same way they work for airplanes, they also help ships avoiding to collide against each others. But they also help us as journalists to track them. Yeah, the ships have transceivers, but we still need to receive the signal from somewhere. So there are two types of receivers. There are ground-based receivers. If you see the photo on the left, it's an antenna, like you put it somewhere on a balcony or a building, usually somewhere near coastal areas. And then, you connect it to this device, which only needs to be connected to electricity and to internet, basically. But what happens when the ships are in open seas? These ground-based antennas cannot basically receive their location. So the maritime industry came up with this solution called satellite AIS receiver. You will find it in the term called AIS. I mean, if you go now to marine traffics and try to see one of the ships who are in the open seas, they will tell you that this ship is in the open seas, and we cannot give you a lot of information because we're using satellite receivers to get this info, and you have basically to pay more money to unlock access to information on this ship. So there are few informations we can use on tracking vessels. The most important one are the first two I have here. The first one is the name of the ship. This is not permanent. This changes frequently with the change of ownership. It's usually also painted on the ship. The second one, which is the most important one, is the IMO number. This is the number given by the ship to the ship by the International Maritime Organization. It stays with the ship from the moment they make it until the moment they basically kill it. This is the main number you use when you try to track a ship. Additionally, there is the MMSI number that you will find. It's not that important. Ships use it as a radio number so they can call each other and exchange communications in the sea. And then you have the flag, which is basically the flag of the country where the ship registered to. It doesn't mean a lot, basically. And it also changes sometimes when the owners decide to register the ship to another state where regulation might be better for their business model. As you can see, this example of a ship, you can see the name. You can see also the IMO number written on it. Let's talk a bit about the data dealers. The same way airplanes use flight radar and these kind of services. These are some of the equivalent services in the maritime industry. The most known one is marine traffic, but of course, it's not the only service out there. I frequently also use vessel finders, which is also very good. And I wish I could do a live demonstration on how they work, but since we have to stay on this, I will just explain the most useful features. So most of you have tried to track a ship. You just type the IMO number or the name of the ship, and you can see basically some sort of a track, past track where it came from. On marine traffic, for example, you can only see up to 1 week of history for a specific ship for free. And then if you want to access more information, you have to pay money. You can also see other information such as the draft number of the ship or the places where it came from or where it says it's going to. And we'll explain that in a bit. Another thing you can do is to do a playback of a specific area. So in our investigations, it happened very often that we were investigating a shipwreck, and we had, for example, a last location for a boat. And with this feature, you can pin this location on the map and just let marine traffic play you what was happening in real time around this location. So you could say, from 2 to 4 p.m. Try to see like what ships were passing by near the boat, like did they stop, did they change their behavior, did they try to provide help. So yeah, for us it was helpful in this sense. Other cool things you can do with these services, like check out weather data, see like where the wind was blowing at any given moment in time. But they also have limitations, this website. Unfortunately, for most of the newsrooms, like the small one at least, they are very expensive. And even if you pay like the most expensive subscriptions, you can only get data which is like 1 year old. And then you will have to, if you want data which is older than 1 year, you would have to request that like by email and basically get a code. Some of these services, like if you tell them you are a journalist, they give you a good discount. And if you establish like relations with them on the long term, like you can get really better discounts actually. Other limitation also that the military and the law enforcement vessels are often not featured. But like one thing I've noticed that if they are not featured in marine traffic, it's good to try other websites because sometimes they are trackable elsewhere. So what does an AIS antenna see? Basically, like it can see information such as the speed, the course, the draft number, but also like most importantly, the coordinates of a ship at a specific point in time. This information are imported automatically and broadcasted through the AIS transceiver. But there is another type of information which is basically typed manually by the crew. These are information such as destination port and or the port where the ship had departed from. And those of you who have worked in ship tracking, you would sometimes find that this information, the second type, is not always accurate. So a ship could claim it's going somewhere or it's coming from a specific place, but this might not be true in reality. So it's something to take with a pinch of salt. So when you request AIS data, which is older than 1 year, for example, this is how it looks like. This is high resolution AIS data. It's basically one position every 5 minutes. This is why they call it high resolution. You can also request like lower resolution, which will be less positions and also cheaper. So yeah, this is the kind of information that you get. Not everything, of course, is super helpful, but we will come back to this specific ship in a bit. But tracking a vessel on these websites is relatively easy. It doesn't need any skills. And like most of the difficult vessels that are connected like to big stories are usually traveling out of sites, offline, let's say. They're not broadcasting their location. So there are few things we can do when this happens. We can try to go to private sources, try to obtain documents. So one of these documents is called the Bill of Lading. This is legal document between the shipper and the carrier. It details basically the type, the quantity, and the destination of the cargo which is being carried. And if you want to access this document, there are basically 4 places that you can try. It's the custom authorities, the shipper, the carrier, and the receiver, which is basically the client. So if you manage to get access to any of these 4 categories, which is not always, of course, the easy thing, maybe you can unlock extra information for your investigation. Other things we can do is to get creative when we do that. So I will share this example from the investigation we worked on the Syrian phosphates. So basically, this is a list published by the Syrian port of Tartus in 2019, February the 5th. It details the ships that were working in the port, basically, and the type of cargo it was carrying. And like this is a really, really strange thing because Syria is not the most transparent country, and it's most likely an individual act that led to the publishing of this list. But nonetheless, our colleagues at the Syrian Investigative Unit, Siraj, spotted this list, and they figured out that some of the ships were moving phosphates. And like as good journalists, they thought that, okay, let's go and look for these ships, where they're going. And very frequently they saw that these ships were going toward European destinations. I will explore with you how we worked on this and how we verified that these ships indeed went to Europe. So in this list, you can see like there are two ships, one called Ali B and the other one is called Daytona Prime. And on the last column on the left, you can see like the numbers 18 and 19. This is the number of the berth in the Syrian port. So this berth basically is a place where it's only for phosphates. So we figured out, looking at this list, that whenever there was like phosphates involved, it was 18 or 19. And whenever it was like 18 or 19, it was the ships were carrying phosphates. So what we did is we looked, for example, at one of these ships, the Daytona Prime. You could see like this is the spreadsheet that we had requested. So to remind you, the list that we just saw was from the 4th of February. And this is the AIS data available on the ship. So basically, if you see the highlighted part, I highlighted it because this is like a place where we have like a really big gap. So on the 20th of January, it disappeared. It stopped broadcasting its location, and it reappeared again in a similar location one day after the publishing of this list. I put them on the map here, the two locations, so you can see. They're obviously like somewhere near Cyprus. It's unclear where the ship was, and if it wasn't for the list, maybe we would have never known. But we still need to verify this further. One thing you can also do is to try to see on the days that your ship of interest has disappeared, if by any chance, like if you suspect it was at a specific port, just go to satellite images, try to see if you can find your ship of interest. So this is a photo taken on the 4th of February. This is during the gap of this ship. And it's a really beautiful photo because basically it shows the phosphate inbuilt crane. Here you could see like the trucks that are bringing the phosphates and how they are putting it inside. But you can also see the phosphates itself inside the ship. And when you compare this ship against the Daytona Prime photos that are available on the internet, you could see that every detail matches that ship. And most importantly, you can see like the phosphates being uploaded live. So this is like a really beautiful satellite imagery. It doesn't happen very often, but like when such things happen, it's a really happy day at the office. Other things you can do to make sure it's the same ship. Tools such as Google Earth, they have the ability to measure objects in satellite images. So every ship, if you go on marine traffic, its measurements, like they are publicly available. So just go and do that extra bit of verification to make sure you got it right. This is another example of investigation where we used satellite images. This is the story that we worked on with Emmanuel also. And the photo above is a photo of a refugee boat. It was given to us. It was basically a video. We did a stitching so we can have like a better picture. And in this video, you could see like a refugee boat stuck between 9 to 10 Coast Guard vessels. This refugee boat ended up being illegally departed. One of the vessels was a NATO vessel. The other vessel was a Frontex vessel, and the rest of the vessels were Greek and Coast Guard vessels. And we wanted to verify that this happened on the day the Syrian man claimed it did. So we went and we asked Planet Lab to provide us with these really nice satellite images from that day. And luckily they had one. And you can see like all of these ships doing ground against each other. So it was a really extra nice bit of verification. Another thing you can do when you run out also of leads is that you can go on after the people who are living, who are working inside the ships. I mean, while the captain maybe doesn't want to share his locations, the engineers, the mechanical, all the workers inside, these guys, they spent months inside the ships, and they like to overshare. They like to share things with their families back home. So this is an example of one of the engineers sharing his location somewhere near Egypt and tagging that on Facebook. And if you look at these guys, they frequently do such things. They either post photos once arriving to the dock, or like do these tags, so like they can have a bit of interaction with their friends. So yeah, every person on the ship is a living lead for your investigation. Another thing you can do is to find social media accounts of people who work in ports. I mean, sometimes they might publish a selfie during work where your ship of interest is right behind him or her. This is an example of one of the Syrian workers in the Tartus port that we are interested in. He posted this photo on January the 9th. And you can see these blue objects. These are parts of the cranes in a phosphate berth. So when we saw this photo, we were like really happy that, okay, now we just have to identify this vessel and see where it's going. Obviously, this is a selfie, so it was mirrored. We had like to unmirror it to get like a better understanding of the vessel. And with like some zooming, you can see that you can see here that the first part, like it's probably C, and like you can see an A and T. So with some Googling after, we managed to find that this is the ship called Sea Navigator. And right after this photo, it traveled with phosphate to Romania. Other things also you can do is using social media. You can use the feature of looking at tagged locations, tags, posts, and photos. So you can go to, I don't know, like this is, for example, Tartus port, and someone had tagged this nice video where it shows some ships. So yeah, these videos can have a lot of nice insights, and these guys who are posting these videos could be the reporters your newsroom cannot send to this place, basically. Another thing you can do is sometimes you get your hands on some visual materials from inside the ship that you're interested in, and this is one example that from one of the investigations we were working on at Lighthouse about a shipwreck that happened in Italy last February. And there was a video uploaded by the smuggler a few days before everyone died in the shipwreck. And we really wanted to make a timeline. We didn't have a lot of data points, basically, because the smugglers didn't allow the people to share their locations with their friends. They basically had confiscated their phones. But this smuggler had posted this video where you can see this really nice navigation screen. And after we analyzed it, we understood that this is an app called Navionics that is used by people at sea just like to navigate properly. And with some basic Photoshop overlaying, you can have an idea about where the ship was approximately. I mean, it's not exact precision, but it was in that area at that time. Also, like things you can do is look at ownership. So if you're investigating a vessel, you must be also interested in the owner of this vessel, right? Because the owner is the ultimate responsible person for these vessels. There are websites such as Equaces that can help you figure out the entities or the companies behind the vessel, but I mean, this is not like a presentation about financial investigations, but you would find very often that the owner is a company called something like, I don't know, Gutenberg Shipping Limited, and just have to figure out where it's registered, go to that country, company registration, and try to see who are the people behind this company. It's often a difficult task. So yeah, this is the website link for those of you who want to copy it. You need to make an account and sign in to use it. One thing you need to do is like to make sure that when is the last date this information was updated, because I mean the last thing that you want to happen to is to publish investigation claiming you knew the owner, just to find out after publication that the owners had changed before that incident happened. You can also see like the history of ownership, how it changed over time. It's a really nice website. The same websites offer insights into inspections. So ship inspections, they refer basically examination, assessment of vessels. This is done to ensure that they comply with different international and national regulations, standards, safety, and also environmental requirements. Reading in inspection reports or assessments could give us like really that extra intel as journalists on a specific vessel. So yeah, they're worth reading. And this is from the same website. You can see how many times the ship was inspected and the numbers of violations for every time. And you can see sometimes like if the violations are a lot, the port state authorities, they might detain the ship. One last bit of information I can share with you is that we often look also at communications when we look at ships. So basically, this is, for example, one website that can help us navigate some of these communications that are floating between ships, and they're also like really important, especially when you're looking at shipwrecks. So yeah, this communication could be anything from like safety related to SOS or like, yeah, urgent stuff. Yeah, other sorts of information like use the playback feature. In marine traffic we talked about, see what ships were passing around that location, try to find out the emails, the account of the owners, the captain, reach out to them, ask them for more information. Reach out to NGOs that are operating in certain rescue areas. These guys are so good, and they often willing to share communications that their radios have captured. One last resort, of course, is to do a freedom of information request to authorities. That's it.
Thanks, Bashar. This was really interesting. We can pull the chairs a little bit in front, right? So our idea is that you ask as many questions as you want, as long as they are practical and direct for both of the panelists. I will start by setting up. I see it, yeah. I have one question and then we can go around the room, okay? The question is it possible that you see boats on one of these tracking websites to be in Gothenburg port, but it's actually somewhere else?
Yeah, actually it's possible. This phenomenon is called location spoofing. It's when ships broadcast a false location. It doesn't happen very often. I don't know like exactly what's the technology behind it and how it's done, but it happens often, and There are ways like to spot it. It's of course not the easiest thing, but you can see sometimes like the ship is doing weird rounds in random places. But yeah, also like when you see that and you are like very suspicious, maybe you can try satellite images. I know New York Times have done recently a very good investigation involving this phenomenon, where they also like used social media accounts of people who were at the sea to prove that it was actually elsewhere.